Let's talk to Harry Phibbs, columnist at Conservative Home. Harry, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. A very happy new year to you. Not such a happy new year for Keir Starmer, who's returned from his holiday in Madeira to yet more brickbats criticism, not only from the people of Great Britain and not only from the Tories and Reform, but now from Elon Musk as well.
Yes, it's as we've discussed before, it's astonishing how quickly this has happened, isn't it? That we've only had him for 6 months, and I don't see any turnaround for him, and I don't see. It's not as if he's taking measures that are going to be short-term unpopular and then have benefits in the long run. No, I think it's just going to go on getting worse.
Well, this is it. I mean, we still hear occasionally from people who try to kind of justify what he's doing inside the Labour Party by saying, oh, well, you know, they have to front-load the disappointment. They have to make sure that all the bad stuff happens in the first half of their tenancy of Downing Street because people will forget all about it by the time there's an election. Well, I don't think that's the plan at all. I think it's basically a clattering train that's out of control. I don't think that Keir Starmer is in any way in control of anything that's going on around him.
No, I think it's falling apart, and I think that increasingly, actually, the voters will be motivated by how do we get Labour out, and I think there'll be a lot of. There's been talk of a split on the right between Reform UK and the Conservatives. What I think will happen is that there'll be a lot of tactical voting, and that people will work out how best to remove the Labour government. So I don't think that will save them.
No, I don't think it will. But the big issue right now on the plate of the Prime Minister is the grooming gangs, because it's been raised by Elon Musk and it's now sort of raging around the country. There's a vote today which Labour are going to put a three-line whip on its members of Parliament to say you cannot vote alongside Kemi Badenoch and ask for an inquiry into this. An awful lot of people in this country think that's the wrong decision and that should be left for members of Parliament to be able to vote with their consciences. So he's going to upset even more people, presumably, later on today.
Yes, there was an email from Kemi Badenoch yesterday. People said, what's the point of the inquiry? Why do we need another? Why would this statutory inquiry be different? And she said it's to identify those public servants who facilitated or ignored this abuse so they can be removed from their roles. I think that's the key point of why we need a proper inquiry with statutory powers where people can be hauled before it, and they have to appear, and they're under oath, because these people who have turned a blind eye, it's not holding them to account isn't just about justice for the victims, although that's important. Yeah. But we've still got these people, the social workers and the counsellors and the police officers and people at the Crown Prosecution Service and the politicians. Probably some of these people are still in positions of authority, and that's why this isn't just a historic thing of now everything's fine. It's not fine. This is still happening because these people with their warped political correctness, let's not cause tensions or whatever. They're still, in many cases, people in authority, and that's why we need an inquiry.
Yes, I think that's right. And I mean, I was just talking to a barrister who's been involved in many of these cases who said, you know, it's not, perhaps inquiry is the wrong word, because some people think, you know, yes, there has been an inquiry, nothing really came out of it, nothing really was actioned as a result. You know, Keir Starmer says he now wants to action some of the things recommended in that J report. But in fact, in the end, not much was paid attention to about grooming gangs in that report in the first place. So perhaps it's a proper police investigation that's required to discover who these people were who covered up and what they were doing and what their role was and where they are now, and bring them to justice.
It's about naming the culprits, naming the guilty men and women, and of course the reason the Labour Party doesn't want this inquiry is that some of them may well be still in prominent positions in the Labour Party. They may be council leaders, they may be former councillors who are now Labour MPs, they may be police and crime commissioners, and so that's the real reason why the Labour Party think, oh well, maybe in the future we should have tougher rules about it. But so far as what's happened in the past is concerned, let's forget about it. It's all a bit too awkward, all a bit too sensitive, and they're not going to get away with it because there's understandably huge anger about that. Given the industrial scale of the most revolting gang rapes, people said, well, shouldn't we call it grooming? Which makes it sound rather sort of gentle. This was the most brutal,
very violent.
astonishing that it happened on such a scale. Now they're saying 50 towns and cities. So the idea of one local inquiry where a local council marks its own homework, or some broader thing about child abuse where it covers a whole lot of other issues apart from these rape gangs. I mean that doesn't answer the point. What we need are people who allowed this to happen, who allowed these crimes to continue. We need them held to account. We need them prosecuted, or at the very least removed from positions of authority. And that's what the Labour MPs will be voting against today.
Yes.
I mean, that is completely unacceptable.
Absolutely right. And so many Labour MPs, and I include some senior people like Angela Rayner, whose constituency borders many of the places where this stuff happened, have said nothing about it. They've been very, very quiet. Jess Phillips obviously has been in the firing line as well. She's refusing to have an inquiry. She's refusing to be suckered into that. But, there's a general kind of culture of silence about all of this. I saw Stephen Kinnock being interviewed on Newsnight the other night. Got himself in all sorts of messes, as tangled up. He couldn't answer the question as to who the far-right people were that were jumping on bandwagons, according to Keir Starmer, who basically accused everybody who wants an inquiry of being far-right, which was insane.
Well, that shows that the mentality hasn't gone away. That was always all along the mentality. This is a bit awkward. If we arrest these people, then it'll become apparent that they're disproportionately Pakistani men, and that will then encourage the far right and encourage community tensions. Absolute nonsense. What encourages the far right is anger at the establishment covering it up and tolerating it. The way to avoid community tensions and avoid extremism is to uphold the rule of law without fear or favour, and it should be irrelevant if anybody's involved in crime of any kind. Certainly raping a teenage girl, then the law should be vigorously upheld, and there shouldn't be any exceptions to that. And very clearly there were exceptions based on race, and that is what has naturally fueled great anger and great distrust in the system, great distrust in the establishment.
Yeah, no question at all. Let's have a look at what Jess Phillips had to say about a national inquiry.
When I was asked to make that decision, my instinct was to try and get for Oldham what I'd seen in Telford.
Which was locally led?
Locally led, independent inquiry.
And that's what she now says that she wants to see. But of course, that's not necessarily what will solve the problem, because it wasn't just about Oldham, was it? It wasn't just about one place. It was about a variety of places, as many as 50 different towns and cities that had this problem. And you can't just assume that each one of those cities and towns was a sort of a case unto itself, that it wasn't in any way connected to any of the others.
Well, she's saying everything's fine and dandy in Telford. I mean, let's see if people in Telford have that confidence. I rather doubt it. But she also said that, as far as Oldham is concerned, quite remarkably, she turned down the request from people in Oldham for a public inquiry, a statutory national public inquiry, without even meeting or talking to people in Oldham. Right. I mean, which is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, of course, another factor for people like Jess Phillips is that they're very worried about votes in their own constituencies, and I would love to say that this attitude is from a small minority of Muslims. I think most Muslims do believe in the rule of law and do accept the British way of life, but there's a substantial number of Muslim voters who don't, and Jess Phillips has had trouble in her own constituency in Birmingham from that section of the electorate, and undoubtedly that's another conflict of interest that a lot of Labour MPs face.
Yes, exactly right. Harry, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Harry Phibbs, columnist for Conservative Home there.